What's up guys, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a full review for the Dread Queen SaGa Soul banner that brings Dread Queen as a damage dealer, but also reactionary debuffer. There's also Yama that applies ailments and can debuff, and Dual Beast that can do damage and debuff. Now let's move to RSXYZ website and start with Dread Queen. She's the best character of the banner. She is a martial arts unit. It says that she can use earth spells, but it's not about that. It's about debuffing. That's why she has 92% intelligence, but also 123% agility and 112 STR. Now the highest ones we have ever seen, but good enough. Her intelligence may not be high enough, but well, she's not really reliant on her intelligence to debuff. Her endurance is 71%, that's not really great, but we was 88%, pretty decent, with charisma being on 71. Moving on. On the start of a battle, she feels all of her overdrive gauge. This is exclusive to global, it does not happen on JP, and it's actually very welcome since she can become a very strong damage dealer on turn 1, and she can even attack with 2 different elements. More about that later. On the start of a round, she also debuffs all enemies' STR, agility, and intelligence by 10%. That's actually nice because if you're fighting versus a boss that has high agility and can debuff you, you reduce that damage, and also reduce the chance of being flicked with ailments. But over the course of fight, this is not really that important. When landing an attack, she will also inflict this Fear of the Queen. This is actually amazing. It was changed in global. Here, when an enemy attacks, it will just reduce its own STR, agility, and intelligence after you apply this. The value is not that high, it's just 5%, but let's see an enemy that attacks way too many times, like 5 times. Well, on Spiral Corridor now, many bosses will attack multiple times. It will lose 5% on each time it attacks. The good thing is that when you are fighting someone like Basil Galeos from stage 190 on Spiral, he likes to check his debuffs before he attacks. If you debuff him too much, he will then use the 5 weakness and start attacking. In the case of Dread Queen, she will still work because after he starts attacking, he will lose STR, agility, and intelligence every time he attacks you. So, a different type of debuff, and kinda similar a little to Pale Nymph, but Pale Nymph is also reactionary, but she actually wants your characters to attack. It's like applying an effect in the enemy, and then after you apply, your characters will attack and then debuff with Biting of Thorns. I prefer Dreaded Queen because, well, if your characters are too fast and they debuff the enemy, it still happens the same thing. Enemy uses the 5 weakness and then attack you on full potential. That's not what's gonna happen with Dread Queen. She is a little more similar to how Creator works. Well, Halloween Creator, it's even better for this. He has this skill called Intimidated that applies on the enemy, and then when the enemy attacks, it will lose attack every time it attacks. So it seems to be 10% from global tests, and each new hit will do less damage. It only lasts for that turn. Even if you apply it 2 times, it will just actually grant 2 attack downs in each hit, but every new turn it starts on full potential and start decaying. In the case of Dread Queen, since it's just a status debuff, it may still use the 5 weakness on the next turn, but then you reapply and you keep debuffing the enemy every time the enemy attacks. That's how it works. Now, also, when activating an overdrive attack, she will use this skill called Hell Scratch. That I'll be talking more right now. Yeah, it's a very powerful attack. It's blunt and slash, and it costs 10 BP, and attacks between 3 to 5 times. So, they're similar to many multi-hits attacks we got in the past. We did have some that were 9 BP, but this one is 10 because of double element. There's something extra. Every time that you attack, you grant yourself this attack boost, increasing damage potential by 15% only for that particular turn, and she will also recover her HP by probably around 300 since she does have some very good charisma. So, you start the fight and you have 10 BP. You can already use this skill. And then you will already use another time because you are attacking on overdrive if you happen to choose to use it on turn 1. But why not? So, you can actually do a lot of damage with a character just by start of turn, and it actually gets better because she does have hit ups. But she will also apply 2 stacks of that Fear of the Queen when she opens. That means that when the enemy attacks, it will actually lose 10% SDR, agility, and intelligence. Enemies usually have very high status when you debuff them. It does make a difference, so that's actually pretty interesting. The skill itself is random, so if you have multiple targets, it can still land in many of them, but if they are behind enemies they are protecting, it may not work. You may actually want to use an AoE attack. There are options via inheritance. But hey, still talking about the first passive, by the end of a turn we get 50 points of overdrive gauge. That means that you start the fight, you use your overdrive, you attack, and then by the end of a turn you already have 50 points. Or you can have more, because the enemy attacking you gets you 8 points of overdrive. If the enemy attacks you at least 7 times, you can still charge overdrive to use it again on turn 2. But that's unlikely to happen. Dread Queen will have overdrive at least guaranteed every 2 turns, and every 2 turns getting the extra Hell Scratch attack and applying 2 times Fear of the Queen. Now back to the second passive, Voltage Force 2. On the start of a turn she gains Heat Up, that increases damage potential for the whole fight by 20%, max of 5 times per battle, to reach 100% damage increase by turn 5. By the end of a turn she gets 2 extra BP. And she also has 30% increase at all times, and also reduces damage taken by 30% at all times. Next damage potential reaches 130% because of her attacks always giving attack boost when using Hell Scratch, and she does decent damage, especially if she gets high number of hits. Skill number 1 is called Wind Cutter, and this one is a single target attack, just slash, free, and has D power, with a chance to debuff the enemy's STR by 15% on max level. Her intelligence may not be as high, so it may work here and there, but if it doesn't, bring a buffer. Someone like Null's Daughter, Muse will help, and it's free. You are getting something that, even if it doesn't work, you will always be using. The second skill is called Predator Dive. It's a single target attack with blunt and pierce damage that, when the attack lands, will grant the enemy morale down medium, decreasing their damage potential by 25% and lasts for 2 turns. So you have to reapply this every 2 turns to have this effect at all times. It is not a fast skill, but she does have very high agility and she will likely attack before the enemy. Third skill is Hell Scratch, that we already discussed it, hitting between 3 to 5 times, and well, you will want to use a triple S weapon with Dread Queen because it has just E power and it scales better when you are using a triple S power weapon. And you will open the fight using Hell Scratch 2 times because of overdrive. Then on the second turn you can use Wind Cutter and then go back to Hell Scratch. That's very good damage potential, and consider that she's actually more of a debuffer than a damage dealer. And well, let's say that you have Shirei or maybe someone else that also gives BP, but Shirei is the best one to say this. If you have Shirei in your party and you are going to use your Flooring Strings to give 10 BP, that's the best cycle that you will be able to get with your Dread Queen, because she can actually start the fight with her Hell Scratch. Nice. She will do a lot of damage. She will cast 2 stacks of Fear of the Queen. That will only last for that turn. Then on the turn 2, you already use Predator Dive. You have extra BP, you can do this. And then you have Morale Down Medium, decreasing damage taken further. And then you go on turn 3 and use Hell Scratch again. And then you go back to Predator Dive. That's something that will work well, especially if you are also running Liz in the same party. And sometimes you will want to use those characters together. So, this is the best setup, but you can just run Hell Scratch and Wind Cutter just fine. And let's say you are fighting against multiple enemies. You can inherit something, and there is Mirage Kick that can be amplified into Mirage Kick Plus. That is then 3 BP, and it has a chance to debuff STR. So if you debuff it with a command, and then debuff with Dread Queen, you actually get a lot of value of this. But there's also Jawbreaker. If there's just one enemy and you want extra intelligence debuff, you can use it, and intelligence debuffs are usually much more interesting than STR debuffs. She also has a past premium style that has a chance to paralyze and apply charm. Well, Paralyze is made for Real Queen herself, and Charm is made for Wuhan Remembrance Battle. There is even an attack that can stun, but we have way too many stunnable characters in Mart's weapon. So, Dread Queen is actually a pretty interesting style. She does have damage. She does have double elements. She does have a different type of debuff. And she has it for intelligence, the best debuff we need for hard challenges. And, well, very good cycles as well. So this character is competing with Medea, that many people will have, many people won't. Medea has multiple attacks with different types of chases and chances, and she can also apply Morale Down Medium. She will be debuffing SDR and intelligence, and Dread Queen can also debuff agility. So, both will work in most case scenarios, with Dread Queen working better in situations like Basil Galeos and stage 190, if the boss checks their results before it attacks. If they don't, if they just choose to use Defy Weakness or something similar by the end of turn, Medea may still be better. Yes, because she can actually debuff higher values just by random chance. There's also, well, the latest ScherBR. That's also considered one of the best debuffers now. She can debuff between 20 and 25% every turn, while also removing the enemy buffs via Witch Trick in her latest style. That is this one. So, I believe that ScherBR will be enough moving forward, because we also want to remove buffs from bosses. But if you miss it out on Esper, or if you miss it out on Medea, now Dread Queen is very interesting to have because she deals good damage and will also be able to keep debuffing with a different type of mechanic even. So, I believe that by what she offers, she deserves an OP grade by being very versatile and different at doing damage and debuffs. The next unit we'll talk is Yama, Bringer of Despair. Well, Yama uses clubs. That's interesting because we do need more club users, and also can inherit shadow spells but doesn't use. There is 89% endurance and 81% will. Will could have been higher, but there is also 92% agility and 90% intelligence. It's not made for damage, but it does have 112 STR. Moving for passives, we have here 30% damage increase at all times, and on the start of turn, we will have an STR and intelligence buff of 20%. So it will keep stacking to reach high levels, so you eventually have higher power and higher chance to apply ailments. Also, when using skill number 3, he will grant himself and one random surviving alliance a regen that will last for 3 turns and will probably recover around 250 since love and charisma are actually low. Also, when landing an attack, it will reduce the enemy's agility and intelligence by 5%. Well, under a character that wants to do this passively, and recovers on BP by 2. So, 5 BP per turn and always debuffs agility and intelligence. Intelligence is always welcome. And then Club Finesse increases damage potential by 30%, so we have 60% at all times, and reduces damage taken by 30% as well. Skill number 1 is called Leg Crush. This one is single target, blunt, and when the attack lands, there is a chance to reduce the enemy agility by 15%. Well, that's okay because it's a free attack, and the buffing agility is useful if the enemy keeps buffing it, so that you actually miss your attacks, or to decrease damage taken from Mart's attacks. And since we'll be buffing intelligence, even if we miss on the start, we will eventually have very high chances to land debuffs. Skill number 2 is called Gravity Wave Plus. This is a single target attack with also just blunt damage, triple S power, and 10 BP cost. It has a chance to debuff agility now by much higher, 30%. So, you have 5 BP per turn, you can actually cycle between using Gravity Wave and then Leg Crush. If the enemy keeps buffing agility, you may not trigger the Dare Assault for Defy Weakness, but if it doesn't, well, sometimes you will debuff too much and the enemy will hate you and use Defy Weakness because of that. Then we have the skill number 3, Necrotic Moss. It's a full AoE attack with just blunt damage, MVP cost as well, and deep power, so damage is non-existent. And it tries to apply Poison, Paralyzes, and Confusion for 4 turns. Poison works for Carmine Remembrance, Paralyzes works for Rio Queen Remembrance, and Confusion works for Wuhan. So 3 different cases for Remembrance, especially for people that skipped the other specialists for this ailment. And then also has a chance to debuff the enemy agility by 15% and the enemy's intelligence by 15%. So now we should discuss. We are actually debuffing much higher values because we also debuff it by 5% because of exhaustion too. So necrotic moss will debuff the enemy agility and intelligence by 20%. And then you go to debuff agility here and it will actually debuff 20. Well, I would much prefer a sheep skill that will debuff intelligence so that I could keep debuffing intelligence. And once more, if the enemy also buffs, you will not trigger the 5 weakness too much. But if you are bringing Yama to just debuff intelligence and you debuff agility too much, the enemy will also use the 5 weakness, breaking the cycle and actually becoming dangerous to apply ailments. So, I would want higher intelligence debuffs instead of just high agility debuffs. They are not as important. And ailments are nice to have, but if you already have these ailments for remembrance, I don't see much volume that Yama can offer you. And the skill number 3 will also trigger that region, but that's not really necessary. We already have healers that are reliable and, well, we don't need this type of thing. Now, Yama gets a free style in the future, and it's interesting that you have now a free skill that will debuff STR instead of agility by 15%. And he also gets a new skill that instead will try to apply poison or confusion, has a little higher power, and he buffs STR by 30%. That's actually interesting to have, and you may want to choose the cheap skill or the pricey one. It will depend. For example, if you want to debuff the enemy intelligence, you will want to inherit the STR skill so that you don't debuff agility too much. And then it will not trigger the 5 weakness as much. But now, if you want to debuff the enemy STR, it may be better to just inherit the big one that debuffs 30% and then cycling it every 2 turns. Maybe better. So there are more utility in the future, but right now, Yama is just that. Well, a character that will get stronger and have higher debuff chances, but it's not really necessary for anything moving forward. And if you want to debuff intelligence, you can just use the other debuffers like Eagle Maul, like also ScherBR. Even if you get Dread Queen, you can stop and not summon for Yama. It works, but it's not essential, and we receive an SS Plus grade in the tier list. The last character is Dual Beast, and a martial arts unit again, with STR on 120% and agility also on 120%. So damage is okay, not as high as it could have been, but good enough. Endurance and will are on 82%. Those values are not that high, but they are on the average levels. We have 85% intelligence, a value that could be much higher since Dual Beast is actually a debuffer. Moving forward, when attacked by spells, it will decrease damage taken by 40%, and it also has a 50% chance to cut all spell damage by 0. Since we are talking about defenses, well, he also has intrinsic, increasing damage potential by 20%, but reducing damage taken when resisting by 40 and having 37% chance to evade resisted attacks. So you already have 40% when resisting. If it's magical, it will decrease by another 40%, and you still have a chance to totally block magical attacks. Now, starts the fight with 13 BP, and after turn 3 counting from the start of battle, grants itself an attack boost of super extreme effect. That's 70%. This lasts for 5 turns and you stack. So, wait, what? Stacking? It will reach as much as 350% damage increase just by this alone. This is higher than what Saruin gets after he fully charges. Then you have another 20% from intrinsic, meaning you have 370% damage increase. The problem is that it takes too much time to get into this. So 7 turns. Yes, that's exactly how much time it takes for the latest Leon to start doing damage as well. But Leon will do much more damage though. So it's something that works, but for martial arts we already have too many damage dealers for remembrance, and I wonder how many people will be using this guy for damage. But besides, he also gets 4 extra BP after turn 3 and beyond. So this will allow it to use better attacks. Skill number 1, Acid Strike Plus. This is a single target blunt and hit attack with just 1 BP cost and C power. Nothing special, just good enough damage for 1 BP. The second one is Lick It All, a full AoE blunt attack with 10 BP cost. In a power that has a chance to debuff the enemy's intelligence by 30%. Well, 85% intelligence may not be that high, it may fail, need to bring buffers most of the time, but it's 30%. That's nice. You could use someone like Shirei and start the fight with Lick It All, and then use it again. And then eventually you are going to get 7 BP per turn, meaning that sometimes you have to skip one turn, but then you can use it again. Some enemies can be debuffed by 30% intelligence, no more than that. So you can actually just go and use this Lick It All and then use a normal attack and then eventually attack every 2 turns. It work, but sometimes it may not. Then we have skill number 3, Scuffle, a single target attack with 4s power and blunt damage, just that. And has no additional effect. We already have some other 4s attacks that have something like boosting this status or this resistance or this power before attacks. So this is just too simple for 13 BP. I already have other characters like Metrak. We have a 10 BP attack that is also 4s, but this is also on the end of the column. It does have 82 power. Still nothing too special. So the idea about this character is to, well, either do more damage when debuffing, but for AoE, or just be a intelligence debuffer that can debuff every 2 turns, usually, or just be a nuker that becomes super stronger by turn 7 and beyond. Well, it does work by extension of raw power, but it's not something really unique. And you could take advantage of the intelligence debuff, but once again, we already have way too many of those, and if you get Dread Queen, she is more than enough, and if you already have ScherBR, also Eagle Maul, and many others like Medea, they probably are good enough already, and you will not need the help of Jewel Beast. So, for damage, if you already have Leon, you are safe as well. So, not many reasons to use Jewel Beast as he was designed for, and kinda hard to take full advantage since some fights need to be cleared fast. Remember? Stage 180 from Spiral. By turn 8, well, you already have to kill Kyling. But let's say that he becomes super strong to help you deal with Time Lord. That could be interesting, but his skills are already too costly. But when he gets 7 BP per turn, he can at least cycle Scuffle and an Acid Strike. That's not really that bad. I believe that Jewel Beast does have good damage potential. It's even higher than Saruin, but takes more time to build as well. It does have good resistance and survivability. You can even place him on the center of a formation to draw more enemy attacks and try to block, but it's a very skippable character that now receives a triple S grade, but will eventually fall to SS+, and people would not care too much about having, and it's not someone that you can say that, oh, I didn't clear this challenge because I didn't have Jewel Beast. So both Yama and Jewel Beast are not really that interesting, and it all lands into, is this banner worth summoning for? And in my opinion, yes, but very low value, because even though Dread Queen is an amazing character, the other banner companions are not something that will help most people accounts. But if you miss it out on Medea or never manage to make the full build of ScherBR and are missing out on damage, Dread Queen is gonna help you a lot, and I can say that she's worth summoning for. But for people that already have their damage and their debuff types, summoning here has very low potential. And I will give this banner Silver Minus award. I don't think it's worth for everyone. I will be skipping the banner since I will wait for the future to get this character, since they are SaGa Soul. They don't drop as much, but, well, I also skipped Medea, and I don't need to have that all. I cleared all the content without it. But Dread Queen is the least unique enough character that will work in different scenarios, not just like all the buffers we have been getting. With all that said, this is my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't. If you want to support the channel, we have links on the description like Patreon, PayPal, and Coffee buttons. And I hope to see you soon in the next video or live stream. Bye.